Another Providence mayoral candidate tonight, perhaps one of the most viable in this race. Jorge Elorza is my guest this evening. There are some pundits out there who speak somewhat silently over the idea that he may actually be the most formidable Democrat in this race. We'll see what he thinks about that. I doubt he'll deny it. But he's got a program, One Providence, that he wants to talk about tonight. And, you know, with so many people in that race, I think we should hear from as many of them as possible. Of course, now that Buddy Cianci is in that race, there's been some air sucked out of the room a little bit. And I'm sure Jorge would like to put some air back into the conversation. So we shall do that this evening. But we got a lot to cover. Thanks for tuning in to My State of Mind. I am Dan York, and let us go to the rundown right now. The president, I think, is missing some priorities here, it seems to me. We have a little bit of background on the Gordon Fox $10,000 loan caper and the hearings that are now scheduled on this. This is becoming a little more complicated, it seems, after some journalistic efforts by the part of the Providence Journal on Gina Raimondo's latest television ad. This guy's just an idiot. And he's kind of a spokes guy for all you knuckleheads out there that the biggest thing in your life is that you finally bought some pot for free. We got some serious tennis going on in Newport, and I recommend yet another rule change in soccer now that I've been semi-glued to the World Cup proceedings, now heading to the final on Sunday. All right, let's dig into the rundown and give you some thoughts on some of this stuff. Yeah, so the president says, I don't want no stinking photo op. Here's the Washington Post headline. He visits Texas originally for some fundraising and other stuff. Now that he's got this incredible crisis on the border with these young people flooding it, you know, he's taking pictures of himself shooting pool and the like, but he won't go to the border. Here's a little take from CBS.
President Obama is urging Congress to act now on immigration legislation. The president was in Texas last night to meet with Governor Rick Perry and other officials about the growing crisis along the border with Mexico. He said the almost $4 billion in emergency spending that he's requested from Congress would boost border patrols. It would also help provide housing for illegal immigrants, including tens of thousands of unaccompanied children awaiting deportation.
You know, this is a chip away type of thing. This is a response to a crisis. This is not the continuing conversation on immigration reform. Now, look, the Senate has passed an idea. The House won't take it up, and we've talked about the political conflict that goes along with that. But I got to tell you, the president doesn't want a photo op. He doesn't want to show up, who? The immigrants? The illegal aliens, speak of them the way you want to, and show up on the border and actually take a good hard look at what's going on there. Not that he hasn't been there before, I think, but he seems to be very aloof in this whole matter. And throwing $4 billion at this problem, building up a judge environment and you know, some kind of evaluation environment. I understand this is a very difficult thing to resolve, but like I said to you earlier in the week, when's the last time we did a little public relations propaganda in these Central American communities in Honduras and the like and say, you know what, by the way, you're not welcome here. This rumor that it's all going to be fine when you cross our border is not true. Why aren't we doing that? It's the old-fashioned way. Like, let's win the propaganda war here. Thank you very much. All right, next item. This is some of the detail that is going on with this $10,000 stuff. So here's the headline. A couple of days ago, lobbyist discloses that he made this loan to Gordon Fox. So Gordon Fox, the former Speaker of the House, who's all jammed up, right, has had his office raided and everything else, gets this loan from Ray Rickman, who we've had on the broadcast here before. He's a former state rep and a former assistant secretary of state. So he knows the rules of the road when it comes to lobbying. Back in 2009, Ray tells me today, off camera and off the radio, but on the telephone and for the record, that he did make a $10,000 loan to Gordon Fox for personal use, some kind of work at Gordon's home back then, and Gordon didn't have the dough to pay the contractor for some work. All right, so he, being a lifelong friend, said, sure, I'll give you the money, and Gordon said, I'll pay you when I get out of office. So it's a long-term note. Yeah, no doubt, like 5 years now. What happened is that Rickman was listed as a lobbyist for this company that was pursuing business here to put red light cameras out there to bust our chops when we speed through them or blow through them. I don't think that company ever got off the ground here. But Rickman was doing some investigative work for them and some background work and was listed as a lobbyist and then forgot, he says, you know, months later to file his report saying that he had loaned money to the then Majority Leader Fox. He admits that that's a mistake. Okay. So he made a mistake, and since then he's been lobbying, off and on every year for other causes, and that's kind of what he does in his business. I believe him when he says he just made a mistake. Fox is kryptonite right now, so money in Fox is like this whole big story. The guy who's taking advantage of this right now is this guy, the Secretary of State, Ralph Malus, who now says he's going to have a show cause hearing, bringing Rickman in to answer to this loan. Do you know what? The Secretary of State's office has never had a hearing on this stuff ever. Now, look, he's also having hearings on 38 Studios, pursuing lobbyists that were right under his nose until Tim White gave him the information on a Target 12 report. And now he's going to chase down Ray Rickman and bring him into some kind of Watergate type of setting, asking him what did he know and when did he know it? Please, find Rickman, he deserves it, shut down the hearings, and get back to running for lieutenant governor in a way that doesn't exploit your position as Secretary of State. Ralph. Next item. Crossroads in politics. Speaking of exploitation, here's the headline. Kathy Gregg in the Journal doing a nice little read here on this now controversial Raimondo ad, the life-saving ad, and their use of Crossroads, Rhode Island, which is a private non-for-profit that the IRS says can't be political. I remind you of the ad.
I know what it's like to have someone save your life. Twice. When my children and I escaped my violent husband, the Crossroads shelter found us a place to stay. And when I was severely beaten by a landlord, the Rhode Island Crime Victims Fund helped me recover. Gina Raimondo helped expand the Crossroads shelter, and as treasurer, she fixed the Crime Victims Fund. It had a 900 case backlog. Gina saved my life, twice.
Look, there's no doubt, well, in my humble opinion, that is one of the most pretentious ads I have seen in a long time. But you got a conflict in IRS language here. I guess Crossroads can't be involved in something that is political. But if they are involved in something that's political, they got to invite all politicians. So they might have some arguments either way. But this ad is become more lightning than rod. Could be more trouble than it's worth for Gina Raimondo. I'm not so sure how long it will stay up. I think she's come out of herself a little bit with that assertion, don't you? All right, next item here. This is just funny across the country. This comes from Jess's Grab Bag. This is very interesting stuff. Here's the headline. Yeah, so first time you have an opportunity in Washington to buy the pot, this knucklehead did, and now he's all jammed up. Check this out.
Now that marijuana is legal in the state, Boyer believes businesses should treat employees using weed on a case-by-case basis.
Just because I smoke a little weed on my time off, I've never had a problem with that at work. Why am I here now?
A day after all the excitement, he may not have a job, but he still has the title as the first person who bought marijuana legally in Spokane.
But I am number one, and nobody could take that.
Dude, I mean, it's he's working for, he got 3 jobs, one of them's a security company that requires that you're drug-free. Yeah, so we still have conflicts in corporate America and in other states. Be careful for those of you who are running to these places where you can buy your dope for free. There are still repercussions. But I guess it was all worth it for him because he had his 15 minutes of fame, which of course in America these days is the most important thing that you can do. We got a lot going on in Newport right now. Very interesting about American legacy versus American today reality in sport from our sports guys.
There are some great players playing tennis at the International Tennis Hall of Fame in Newport this week. Nicholas Mahut is back. He's your defending champion.
I always enjoyed the tournament. I love the city. I love everything around the tournament, the Hall of Fame inductee. And it's always a great week for me.
On Tuesday, 2-time NCAA champion Steve Johnson tried to fire up some of America's youth. So on Wednesday, we continued our search for the next great male American tennis player because let's face it, right now, there isn't one. Yanni Caracas is not that man.
Oh, he had contact.
Sorry, Jans.
Who is your favorite American tennis player?
Currently or retired or what?
Currently.
I don't know any of them.
McEnroe is mine, fiery son of a gun, but really, you can't. Federer? He's American. No? What is Federer? Roger Federer. He is? He's not American? See? I tried to pull one out of my wazoo and just went, well, you still bet. Anyway, I guess we have a little bit of a dearth in tennis lore around here. And finally, on sports I don't know anything about and shouldn't be talking about, World Cup soccer, but you just put the ball back. So I watched the whole Argentina-Denmark. That's the first time Jess yelled at me during the show. I say, always yell at me when I make a mistake. Then this guy from the Netherlands has never saved a goal in penalty kicks, ever. He was a sitting duck. The other guy from Argentina saved 2, and they're like, would you put the ball back 50 yards and give the goalies a chance? What is it, they got to guess? It's like, oh, I guessed right, and you hit it right where I was, and I look like I'm afraid of the ball. I've had it with this World Cup soccer. Anyway, Federer is an American?
I don't know.
Laura says, don't ask me. I'll ask Jorge. Maybe he knows. Next, stay with us. Federer is American. Well, even Jorge knew the guy was from Switzerland and South Africa. Federer, what am I thinking he's from America? Anyway, it's been a long week already, seems to be. Here are the thoughts of this candidate. He says this is one Providence, and these are the 3 issues they would like to talk about today. You know what? Whenever a candidate or anybody comes in here and says, listen, this is my agenda, I respect that. I don't have to drive the show and ask all the questions. Welcome back. Good
Thank
to
you
see
for having me, Dave.
Jorge Elorza is running for mayor, and I did mention, and we'll talk a little bit about little politics at the end of the show, that there are some folks who think that you are silently incredibly formidable in this race based on your persona, your ideas, but maybe some of the psychographics in the race as well. So we'll talk about the politics. But since you came saying, I got some issues, go ahead, fire away, run the show. Tell me what we ought to be talking about in terms of one Providence.
Sure. So the theme in our campaign is one Providence. We rise and succeed, but only if we rise and succeed together. And all of our proposals deal with this issue of how do we raise up the entire city. Earlier this week, we released a municipal broadband proposal. Now, many other cities have done this. Providence used to be known as the beehive of industry. And the factory is located here in Providence right next to the rivers because those rivers were the energy source for each of those factories. In the same way in the new economy, companies will be locating next to those energy sources. And for the new economy, the knowledge economy, those energy sources are high-speed, ultra-high-speed internet networks. So I've proposed a broadband network here in Providence in the same way that other municipalities have done it around the country. This is a bold idea right now, but 10, 15, 20 years down the road, this is going to be the basic standard that any municipality looking to compete in the new economy must provide.
All right,
We've already missed the past economic boom. We cannot afford to do it again.
Well, it dawns on me, Laura, I know we're going to use this later, but can you pull Mr. Harrop from yesterday? Because I recall that this is what he was talking about you, and he said something about this plan. Can you pull that?
Yep.
Roll that? Thank you.
Mr. Elorza now says we're going to broadband the whole city. None of them are talking about the money and the finances. None of these plans have a financial backing behind them.
So that was his complaint last night. What is the scratch for this whole thing?
Sure. So the benefit that we have is that there have been a number of municipalities that have built their broadband networks, and we can learn from their experiences. So, for example, Kansas City brought in Google Fiber to build their network. Chattanooga, Tennessee, they worked with a public utility to build their network. But I think that perhaps the most interesting example is happening right now in North Carolina, where they brought together a consortium of universities and important institutions, and they put an RFP, a request for proposal, for a private company to come in and build that network. And as of June 20th, AT&T agreed to build that network in North Carolina.
At their expense?
At the
expense?
At the municipality's expense, but essentially the network gets leased out to AT&T or to another private internet service provider. So one misconception here is that this is sort of the government providing high-speed internet. It's actually not that at all. It's still a private ISP, but it's the municipalities that are ensuring that ultra-high-speed internet networks are built in the city.
So what's the cost?
So that they're provided. So there's already a number of lines that have been laid here in the city. There's a Beacon 2.0 that connects a number of universities. That came at a cost of about $33 million. Cities of comparable size throughout the country, it has cost about $300 million. We can do this here using private investment and also leasing this out and making revenue through advertising. Also through
So is your
providing
plan to
services.
is your business model to have a zero cost to the taxpayers for this?
That's the idea. This is one of those plans that pays for itself And like I mentioned,
is there upfront capital expense for the taxpayers?
yes, absolutely. There are always upfront expenses.
Of 30 to 300, do you know what it is?
So other municipalities, there are a lot of different options that municipalities have chosen. Sometimes it's at a heavy upfront municipal expense. Other times the private companies make the investments, with the idea that they were going to recoup their investment over
What's
time.
your druther? What's your druther in terms of how to finance it right now? If I said, let's do it today, how would you do it?
Yeah, so it's important to make sure that we have a number of different options to do it. I think the best way to do this is to bring together a consortium of different institutions here in the city that could be serviced and would benefit from something like this.
So you're not sure
and coming
yet,
up
you
with
want
a plan.
everyone to be at the table and figure it out?
Exactly.
Okay.
And this is the same approach that a number of other municipalities have done it. But the point is that this is important. This is a bold idea right now, but this is part of the basic standard that any municipality competing in the new economy will have to provide going forward.
Right.
And other municipalities have done it, we can do it here as well.
More on the one Providence and the politics of this Providence when we come back. Stay with us. Yeah, Chad Brown the other night, you get 5 shots fired, and whenever you get, whenever you got this kind of, well, you have victims, a number of victims, 5 people hit here, one seriously injured. It's a shocking thing for everybody, even in the suburbs, to see this kind of news. Jorge Elorza, candidate for mayor here, you got a community policing plan in your program. I don't know how you stop that. The police, I'm sure, are going to find out who, what, where, and how, and gang-related. And you've got thoughts about all that kind of stuff. So, in short order, what up with that?
Yeah, I just have to say that that's outrageous. I mean, what is this, Chicago? I mean, this is not supposed to happen here in the city. There has to be outrage. And one thing that I'm very inspired by is that there's a movement in the community to, there's going to be an event this weekend at Chad Brown. And the idea is that the community will not be silent when this occurs. And it's going to be a strong showing of support for everyone at Chad Brown to know that the community and the city is behind them. They're not alone and they can't be scared. So with that said, my plan for public safety begins with this idea. I've spoken with a number of police officers, and to a T, they tell me that the most powerful tool that they have in law enforcement are the relationships in the community. My vision for public safety is that every single household in the city should be on a first-name basis with at least one police officer. And there's a lot we can do to get there.
You got to add personnel to do that?
I'm fully committed to community policing, and for that we have to find the personnel so that folks can walk the beat, get to know the neighbors,
How do you afford
the
it?
neighborhoods. We have to find the funding. So right now, in the current budget, we have the funding to increase the police budget for the 60 new police recruits that are coming online. And it's just a priority that we have to emphasize and make sure we find the funding. Years ago, we found a lot of this funding through the federal government. We have to be creative in finding grants through the federal government to bring more dollars in, and we have to make sure that we prioritize it in the city budget.
Full service community schools, another one of your principles. What does that mean?
Yeah, so full service community schools. So currently, schools are used for less than half of the day, and they're used for less than half of the school year. It's such an inefficient use of space. We build the buildings, we heat the buildings, we maintain the buildings. And what other cities have done is they've gone to full-service community school models where the building is a vibrant place around the clock. And we're not talking about creating new programs. We're talking about taking all the great programs that exist around the school and around the community and bringing them inside. And the benefits are numerous. So we engage an entire community around a school. And if you go to some of these schools that are literally falling apart to a T, these schools, they don't have an engaged community around them. There should be outrage at the conditions at many of these schools, and we have to enhance a community's capacity to advocate on their own behalf and on their children's behalf. And we can do that by engaging them around full-service community schools.
All right. I'm sure your website's got more of this information.
We have all of this information online.
All right. So talk to me about the politics in the 2 minutes we have. Cianci's in the race. Your reaction to that is?
So with Cianci being in the race, I haven't minced words about this from the very beginning. You're talking about a guy who, takes credit for things he hasn't done and deflects blame for things that he has indeed done. And so I think it's a shame that he's considering or jumping into this race. And we're focused on the future. We can't afford the FBI being here investigating City Hall once again. And I haven't heard an apology or any remorse. And what we have to focus on is the future And we offer a fresh perspective that brings the entire city together. And that's the idea of one Providence. We're going to continue communicating our message directly to voters in every neighborhood, in every community in the city. That's our focus, that's our priority. And you know, if we have the good fortune and if we have the honor of being the next mayor of the city, we're going to continue with that spirit in everything that we do.
All right. Well, you got to win a primary first. You win the primary, we'll come back and see how you're gonna face off against Buddy Cianci. But him rope-a-doping as an independent does put a lot of pressure on you Democrats who can't kill each other while you're trying to win this nomination, right? Give me the short version of how you handle that.
So sure, we can't go after each other, but I don't think that Buddy changes much of the equation. To the extent that Buddy changes the equation, now the question is who can beat Buddy? And I think we're very well positioned to beat Buddy. You know, 24 years ago was the last time he ran a competitive race here in the city, and he won only by 300 votes. The city's changed in very significant ways since then, and we're going to go out there and we're going to spread our message to each one of those voters. And I think we stand in very good shape to win those votes.
All right. Come back again before the primary, all right?
Will do.
All right. Jorge Elorza, stay with us. Here's how you get in touch with the show. Call me, email me, tweet at me, Facebook post. I'm short on time because I went too long. We've got some beer makers tomorrow night. That's good for a Friday in the summer, and I'll see you on the radio at noon tomorrow on WPRO. Thanks for watching. Good night.